The rain fell hard on the metal streets of Outpost K-17. The sky was dark, and cold wind howled between the buildings. The lights from the docking bays flickered in the distance, casting a dull glow over the empty walkways. She stood alone. Her clothes were torn and too thin for this weather. Her feet were bare, cracked, and bleeding. She hugged herself tightly, her arms wrapped around her body as if trying to hold herself together. She was not from this planet. Her skin had a soft violet hue, with small glowing lines running along her arms, marks of her kind. Once, those lines had meaning. Once, she had a home, a family, a future. Now, she had nothing. No name, no voice, no warmth. She leaned against the cold metal wall, her body shivering, her head down. A passing group of dock workers ignored her. A drone flew overhead but did not stop. She was invisible. To everyone except one. In a maintenance room, 2 floors above, a human man stared at a flickering security screen. He wore a faded jacket and had grease on his hands. He had been fixing the cameras when the broken feed came alive, and there she was, on screen. In the rain, he frowned. The image was shaky, but he saw her clearly enough, her posture, her ribs showing, her bare feet. His hand paused over the controls. "Who is she?" he muttered. He checked the registry. No entry. He checked patrol logs. Nothing. He leaned closer, watching. She hadn't moved in minutes. Just stood there, as if she no longer cared what happened. And then her knees bent, and she slowly slid to the ground. His heart kicked. He grabbed his coat from the back of the chair, didn't even bother turning off the monitor, and ran down. The stairs, across the corridors. Past the docking bay, rain hit his face as he stepped into the open. He spotted her right where the camera had shown. She didn't react when he walked closer. "Hey," he said softly. "Nothing." He knelt down slowly, keeping a bit of distance. "You're gonna freeze out here." Still nothing. Her eyes were open, but dull, unfocused. He looked at her shaking form. Carefully, he took off his coat and gently draped it over her shoulders. The moment the coat touched her, her body flinched. She looked at him, really looked. Her eyes were wide, glowing faintly with fear and confusion. "It's okay," he said. "Just stay warm." She opened her mouth, but no words came. She pulled the coat tighter, her fingers trembling. "You need food," he said, "and shelter." A second, it seemed like she would bolt. Then, very softly, she spoke, her voice barely a whisper, like a broken wind. "Why?" He paused. That single word hit him harder than a shout. Why? She wasn't asking why he brought a coat. She was asking why anyone would help her at all. He sat down beside her on the wet floor, because no one else did, he said simply. They sat in silence for a long time. She didn't cry. She didn't thank him. But her fingers gripped the coat like it was the only thing keeping her from disappearing. The human man stood up slowly, then offered his hand. She looked at it, didn't take it, but when he turned and started walking, she followed, step by step back. At his quarters, he opened the door and let her in first. The space was small, messy tools scattered, food containers stacked, and old blankets on the bunk. But it was warm, dry. He pointed to the small heater in the corner. "Sit there, I'll get you something." She didn't sit right away. She looked around carefully, like she expected a trap. He didn't rush her. Instead, he pulled out a sealed meal pack and heated it. He placed it in front of her. She stared at it, then sniffed it, then devoured it fast, like she hadn't eaten in days. He didn't interrupt, only watched quietly after the food. She looked at him. "You should report me," she said, her voice a little stronger. "Why would I do that?" He asked. "I'm nothing." "No," he said, shaking his head. "You're cold, hungry, and tired. That's not nothing." She looked down, then up. Her voice trembled again. 37. He raised an eyebrow. That's what they called. "Me," she said. "Cargo number." He didn't reply right away. Then said firmly, "That's not your name anymore." The small room buzzed softly with the sound of the wall heater. Wasn't much, just a warm hum and faint orange light. but for her, it felt like something magical. She sat on the floor, legs pulled close, wearing the human's thick coat. It swallowed her small frame, but she didn't let go of it, not once. He moved around the room quietly, cleaned up some tools, pushed boxes aside. He didn't ask her anything. He didn't stare. He just let her exist. For the first time in so long, no one was shouting, grabbing, or pointing weapons. He placed a blanket near her feet. She didn't touch it yet. Instead, she asked, "Why are you alone?" He looked up, surprised. "Not many ask that," he replied, then gave a small, tired smile. "I guess you could say. I got tired of watching people suffer." She tilted her head. He sat down on a crate, facing her but not too close. "I served during the Vulcan campaign," he said. Her eyes widened. She knew that name. Everyone did. The Vulcan campaign was brutal. The humans were surrounded, outnumbered. Many thought they would surrender, but they didn't. They fought back with everything. And in the end, it was the Vulcans who begged for peace. My squad didn't make it, he continued. They were ambushed. I was the only one who walked away. She swallowed, guilt tightening in her chest. My kind. We're allies of the Vulcans, she said quietly. We shared tech, sold slaves. I know, he said. His voice wasn't angry, not bitter, just tired. She hugged her knees tighter. You should hate me, she whispered. I don't. He said, you didn't drop weapons. You were dropped like garbage. Silence filled the room again. He stood up and walked toward the storage cabinet, pulled out a fresh set of clothes, small-sized, maybe something from supply meant for youth. Cadets, he handed them to her gently, not getting too close. Bathrooms through there, he said, nodding to a door in the back. Water's hot. You can change and clean up. She didn't move. He didn't push. After a while, she slowly stood up, holding the clothes like treasure, and walked toward the bathroom. She closed the door softly behind her. Inside, she stared. At herself in the mirror, her cheeks were hollow. Her skin was marked with small bruises and thin scars. Her hair was dirty, uneven. She looked like someone who had survived a storm, but now, maybe. It was over. Her fingers hovered over the button on the wall. She pressed it. Warm water burst from the pipe, all in a steady stream. She gasped. Her body remembered punishment ice blasts, shock sprays. Her knees buckled. She fell to the floor. Her breath came fast. Too fast. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. Outside the bathroom, the man heard the crash. He rushed to the door but didn't open it. He pressed his palm against it. I'm right here, he said softly. No answer. You're not back there, he said again. You're safe now. Her breathing slowed. She didn't open the door, but she spoke. Do you promise? Do. When she came out, her hair was wet and tied back. She wore the new clothes, clean and warm. He didn't say anything, just made space for her on the bed. She didn't take the bed. She curled up on the floor beside it. But for the first time, she looked him in the eyes and said, Thank you. He nodded, sitting down nearby. You can stay here, he said, as long as you need. That night, she didn't sleep much, but her eyes stayed open. Not from fear, but because she was waiting for the pain, waiting for someone to hit her, drag her away, call her nothing again, but none of that came. Just the soft sound of the heater, just the quiet breathing of the human across the room, and the coat still wrapped tightly around her. The next morning came slowly. Dim light filtered through the scratched window. The air was still warm, and the soft hum of the heater filled the silence. Like a blanket around the room, she was already awake. She hadn't really slept. She had stayed. Curled in the corner, knees to her chest, watching the shadows shift along the floor. Every sound made her flinch, the creak of the pipes, the soft buzz from the hallway outside. Even safety felt unfamiliar. The human was asleep on his bunk, back turned, breathing slow and deep. He hadn't locked anything. Hadn't even Set a guard drone. He trusted her. She wasn't sure if that made him brave or foolish. She stood up slowly, moving like someone who didn't want to wake the walls. She walked toward the small sink near the corner. Her fingers brushed over the silver handle. Clean, smooth, simple. She'd never had something like this before. Not without orders. Shouted at her. Not without chains. She washed her hands. Watched the dirt vanish down the drain. Later that day, the human returned with a small bag of supplies. Food packs, a new blanket, and a small data pad. You should learn basic, he said gently. The common tongue. I can help. She took it with both hands, surprised. She expected more commands, but there were none. She nodded. I want to. It was the first time she made a choice in years. That evening, something changed. She had eaten quietly and sat near the heater when the man stood and spoke. You need to try the sonic shower again, he said. Not because I say so, but because you deserve to feel clean, feel like yourself again. She didn't answer. He didn't force, but he left the door open. This time, she walked in on her own. The room was small, silent, and clean. The controls were glowing softly on the wall. She stared at the button. Last time, her body had panicked, memories rushing in like blades. Her knees had collapsed, her heart pounding too fast to control. But now she wanted to try. She placed her hand on the button, took a deep breath, and pressed. Warm water came gently from above. It's not a blast, not a shock, a soft stream. She stepped into it, letting the heat run across her shoulders, her back, her face. And then the memories came again, louder, sharper, hands pulling her into a cage. Cold water on bare skin, laughter from guards, her own screams. Her legs trembled. She reached for the wall, her breath catching in her throat. She fell, but not like before. This time, she caught herself. She sat on the shower floor, arms around her knees, water running gently over her like a warm rain, and slowly she began to cry, tears she didn't even know she still had. She cried for the lost years, for the bruises, for the way people looked through her, for the name she never got. To have, and through the sound of the water, she whispered one word, safe. Outside the room, the human waited. He didn't say a word, didn't interrupt. But when she finally stepped out, wrapped in a clean towel, eyes red, hair wet, he nodded once, and she nodded back. Later that night, as they sat near the heater, she touched her chest softly. My people don't allow weakness, she said. He looked at her. I was always small, quiet. They said I would bring shame. That's why I was sold off. He frowned. They were wrong. She shook her head. They weren't wrong in their eyes. But in yours, she stopped herself. Then very softly, she said, in your eyes, I feel like I matter. The human didn't speak. He just reached across and placed the data pad in her lap. On the screen was one word written in basic name. She stared at it, then at him. I can choose. She whispered. He nodded. She looked down at the screen, fingers trembling. She typed something. He leaned in. The word glowed softly on the screen. Kira. He smiled. Kira, he repeated. And for the first time since the day she was thrown out like trash, she smiled back. Kira had lived in the humans' quarters for 9 days. In that short time, her entire world had changed. She had a blanket now, a name, warm food, clean clothes. A data pad where she practiced basic words. Every morning, she wrote 3 new ones. On a scrap of paper, hope, warm, home. And every night, she added one more. But peace never lasts in outposts built on forgotten borders. Trouble always knocks sooner or later. And this time, Kay knocked with steel boots. The warning came through. A local patrol alert. A cruiser from the Sindari coalition had docked. Their colors were unmistakable. Deep red and sharp white, painted in harsh lines across the hull. The same colors as Kira's former masters. The same crest stamped on the collar they once made her wear. From his tool bench, the human frowned. As he read the notice, his name was Corin, though she hadn't asked that yet. He hadn't offered it either. But now he looked at the screen and whispered to himself, "It's them." He found Kira sitting near the heater, sketching strange shapes with her finger on the dusty floor. He sat beside her and said, "We might have a problem." She looked up, and when she saw his face, her heart tightened. "What kind?" "The kind that wears red and white," he said. Her breath caught them. He nodded. "They're here for inspections, which usually means collecting what they think is theirs." She lowered her head. "You should turn me in," she said quietly, "before they find me here." He didn't respond right away. Then he stood and walked over to the console. He tapped the override codes. The lights in the room dimmed. The door seals hissed shut. "No one's coming in," he said, but he was wrong. 2 hours later, a message buzzed on his panel. "Engineer Corin, report to command deck immediately. Bring your guest." No name. No explanation, just pressure. He looked at her. Kira's hands were shaking. "I'll go alone," she whispered. "If they see me with you, they'll hurt you too." He shook his head. "No." She blinked. "I'm not letting them take you." He said, "Not again." The command deck was bright and cold. Sindari officers stood with straight backs and cruel smiles. Their uniforms were flawless. Their weapons were clearly visible. One of them, a tall female officer with golden armor threads, stepped forward. "That," she said, pointing at Kira, "is unprocessed cargo. She belongs to us." "Belongs to no one," Corin said. The officer narrowed her eyes. "She is marked. I don't care." "You will. She carries Sindari blood. She is unprotected under Galactic law. No rights. No species registration. No place." "She has a name," Corin said, stepping in front of Kira. And she has me." The room went quiet. The Sindari officer's voice dropped. "Then you choose to break treaty rules. You'll be charged with theft and interference." Corin crossed his arms. "If sheltering someone from slavery is a crime, I'll wear the cuffs proudly." The outpost commander, a human man in dark blue armor, finally stepped forward. His voice was tired, but strong. "I've reviewed the footage," he said, "of the girl being dumped near our docks. Of her walking barefoot in the rain." He turned to Kira. "You were discarded," he said softly. "But here, that means something." He faced the Sindari. "She's no longer cargo. She's under human protection." The Sindari officer stepped forward, furious. "You have no right," Corin cut in. "She's not property. She's Kira." Kira's voice broke through, soft but shaking. "I never asked him to help me," she said. "But he did. And I'm not afraid of you anymore." The room fell silent. One of the Sindari guards shifted uncomfortably. The officer scoffed. "This isn't over." She turned and stormed out. The others followed as the doors closed. Kira looked at Corin. "You could have let them take me?" He nodded. "I could have. But you didn't." "I wouldn't." She stared at him and whispered, "Why?" He smiled, "Because you matter." The storm had passed. The Sindari cruiser had left the outpost without her. No chains, no threats carried out, no collar. And yet Kira didn't smile. She sat on the edge of the bunk, her hands resting quietly in her lap. Her body was still, but inside something churned. A strange feeling, not fear, not hunger. Something else, something new. Corin was across the room, fixing a broken panel, humming an old Earth tune as he worked. It was the kind of sound that filled silence without needing attention. He wasn't looking at her. He never stared. He always gave her space, and that more than anything was what made her speak. "My kind," she began, her voice soft, "would have let me die." Corin stopped working. He didn't turn, not yet. They wouldn't have fought for me, not even spoken for me. If I had fallen in the street, they would have stepped over me. She looked down, her fingers curled tight. They taught us that. Weakness was a sickness. Kindness was failure. If you didn't fight, you didn't deserve to eat. Corin stood up slowly and turned toward her. "I never saw it that way," he said. "On Earth, we fought. Sure. But we didn't forget to look back for the ones who fell behind. She nodded slowly. Your kind sees value in things mine would throw away. She met his eyes. And you saw value in me. She stood and walked toward the corner of the room where her datapad was charging. She picked it up, tapped it once, then turned the screen toward him. It displayed 4 words. Do I belong now? He didn't answer with words. Instead, he walked over, took the datapad from her hands, and gently placed it on the desk. Then he stepped back. Just far enough. You belong the moment you decide you do. She blinked. He smiled. And if you still need proof, I'll say it again. You're Kira. You live here. That makes this your home too. That evening, something happened she'd never expected. Corin asked her to help. Not with cleaning, not with lifting, but something important. I need to recalibrate this panel, he said, pointing to a control board in the hallway. But I need someone to hold the stabilizer in place while I test the circuits. Her mouth fell open slightly. You want me to help? Of course. But I don't know how. I'll teach you. I handed her a small tool, light, easy to grip. Her fingers wrapped around it like it was something sacred. As he worked under the panel, Kira sat beside him, holding the stabilizer as instructed. She watched his hands, his eyes, his focus, and slowly she smiled. Because for the first time, she wasn't just surviving, she was useful after the work was done. They sat on the floor with leftover food packs and a shared bottle of recycled water. Kira looked at her hands. They don't shake as much now, she said quietly. That's good. They used to shake even when I slept. Corin said nothing, just listened. Every day I thought I would die, she whispered. And sometimes I hoped I would. She looked up at him. But now I hope something else. Oh, he raised. An eyebrow? What's that? She took a deep breath. That tomorrow, you'll still be here. That I'll wake up, and you won't be gone. Corin looked at her for a long time, then said, I've been alone a long time, Kira. Not because I had to be, but because I thought people only bring pain. And now I'm starting to think they can bring light too. There was silence. Warm silence, the kind that doesn't need to be filled. Then Kira reached across the table and touched his hand gently. Can I ask something? Anything? If I ever forget who I am again, will you remind me? It turned his hand and held hers. Every time. That night, before she slept, she wrote a new word on her scrap paper. Trust. And she placed it beside her pillow. The stars outside Outpost K-17 glowed like frozen fire. Inside, Kira slept. For the first time in her life, her face was peaceful. Her hands were still. No nightmares. No whispers from the past. She had begun to breathe like someone who expected. To wake up safe. But peace, especially for those who never had it, is fragile. And someone had come to break it. It started with a quiet sound. A soft electronic click in the hallway. A door sliding open that shouldn't have. Then a shadow moving near. Corin's workshop. He noticed it at once. His systems weren't wrong often. He had motion sensors hidden around the quarters, old habit from his military days. One blinked red now. He reached under the table and gripped the stun button. Didn't turn on the lights. Didn't make a sound. He moved like a ghost and saw 2 figures inside his shop. Tall, fast, not. Sundari officers this time, something else. Bounty hunters. Kira woke to a sharp buzz, the alert signal on Corin's wristband. He wasn't in the room. She sat up fast. Her heart pounded, not from panic, from instinct. Something was wrong then. The door burst open. A tall alien in black armor stepped inside. Kira backed up, bumping into the wall. He raised a scanning device, red light sweeping across her. Confirmed. Marked cargo. Live extraction authorized. She froze. He moved closer. But just as his hand reached for her arm, a blast of blue light hit his side. He dropped instantly, convulsing. Corin stood behind him, baton in hand, chest heaving. The second. Hunter lunged, but Kira didn't scream. She grabbed the heavy heater box and slammed it into the attacker's leg. Corin struck again. The room filled with crashing sounds, sparks and shouting, then silence. Both attackers lay unconscious. Kira was shaking, staring at her hands. Corin turned to her, bleeding from a small cut across his cheek. "You okay?" She nodded slowly. "I didn't freeze." "You didn't." "Fought. Yes, you did." She took a deep breath. "I'm not property." "No," he said. "You're Kira." Security arrived late, as always, on the outer posts. Corin had already submitted the footage. No doubts, no lies. Bounty hunters were acting illegally, paid off by someone outside Sindari law. Maybe someone angry. Kira survived. Maybe someone who still believed in callers. But this time, they failed. Later, after the room was cleaned and quiet again, Kira sat with her datapad on her knees. She tapped the screen slowly, then held it out to Coran. It read, "Will they always come for me?" He looked at it for a long moment, then replied, "Maybe." Her eyes filled, but he added, "They won't reach you." She whispered, "Why are you risking this for me?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked to the shelf and picked up a small silver tag. It was old, an ID badge. From his time in the war, he handed it to her. She read the name, Corin Vale, Rescue Engineer, Human Emergency Forces. "You save people even then," she said. "Not enough," he replied. "But I won't fail again." That night she didn't sleep right away. She sat near the heater, holding the badge, thinking about the hands that once dragged her, and the hands that now held her up. She picked up her scrap paper and wrote a new word, defend. Then another, fight. And finally, mine. Because this time her name, her life, her place was hers. The outpost was quiet again. No more alarms. No more threats in the shadows. But Kira couldn't stop thinking. She sat on the ledge outside Corin's quarters, staring at the stars. Her feet dangled over the edge, bare and scarred, but no longer cold. She clutched a folded paper in her hand. It's the one she had been writing on since the first day she arrived. One word added each night. Now, it held more than a dozen. Home, warm, name, trust, fight, safe, mine. Each word was like a piece of her. Something she had never owned before. Corin stepped outside and stood beside her. He didn't say anything right away. He never pushed her to speak. But he always showed up when it mattered. She looked over at him. "You're not tired of me?" she asked softly. "Not yet," he said with a small grin. She tried to smile too, but her lips trembled. "What if one day I change?" she whispered. "What if I get angry? What if I break again?" Corin sat beside her, resting his arms on his knees. "Then I'll stay," he said. Her brow furrowed. "Even then, yes." She looked down at the paper in her hands. "I don't want to be a weight. You're not? I don't want to be a project. You're not that either." She finally looked into his eyes. "Then what am I to you?" He was quiet for a moment. Then, in the simplest voice, he said, "You're the reason I came back to life." Her breath caught. "I thought I was saving you," he added, "but you were saving me too." The next day, a small ceremony took place. On the command deck, Kira stood before the station's AI registrar. Her hair was tied back. She wore a simple uniform shirt and the name badge Corin gave her. The human commander nodded. "You've been granted protective status. You are no longer marked as cargo. You are a registered citizen of Outpost K-17 under Human Defense Protocol." Kira took the digital slate and pressed her hand to it. Her full name blinked onto the screen. Kira Vale. Later, back in their room, she placed the old folded paper on the wall beside her bed. Corin watched her from the workbench, adding a new word, he asked. She nodded, but instead of writing it alone, she turned to him. "Can I say it out loud this time?" He looked at her gently, of course. She took a breath and whispered, "Family." That night, the stars were bright. They sat beside each other, one human, one girl who was once left in the cold. No chains, no fear, no collars, just warmth, just choice, just arms that would hold her, not just tonight, but tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. Because in this broken galaxy, where so many forgot what it meant to care, one human remembered.